All right. Good morning, everyone. It's always good to have you all here with us for one more lecture. Another Sunday. Weather's starting to get a little bit warmer, so it's always nice. It's easier to get out of the house now and come here and be here with us. Today, we're going to have a lecture talking about the purpose of spirits that's going to be given by our friend Tiago. And but as always, before we start our studies, we're going to have our initial reading and our initial prayer.
Good morning, everyone. So the reading of today is from the book Happy Life by Divaldo Franco. The opportunities for moral improvement that life allows us should be taken advantage of wisely and immediately. The march of time is inevitable, and on occasion neglected is lost forever. Time and wind never come back. Thus, it is a liberating blessing to utilize every opportunity for inner growth. Stay alert in order to take the most advantage of the hours of your earthly existence. So let's now close our eyes, elevate our thoughts to our Master Jesus, and all the beloved Spirit's friends present here today. Let's ask them to open our minds and our hearts for the lecture of today, that they inspire our friend Tiago to bring everything he studied clearly to us. Thank you, so be it.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Very glad to be here. Disclaimer, if a little person starts, pulling my leg here, it's because he's practicing being unattended. That might not happen very well. Again, very glad to be here. Very glad to talk about this topic, which is the purpose of spirits. But I will confess that at first, I did not understand the title. And I started questioning the meaning of that title. We receive sometimes the title and we have the task to study and to understand the topic. But I started asking myself, what does that mean? Is that a function for us in life? What is the purpose of spirits in the life of each other? Why did God create us? So I think there are many questions built in this statement. And of course, that I'm not going to be able to answer all of them, but I would try to bring to you and share with you whatever I understood about our purpose as spirits. Because, after all, we exist. We are. And because we are, and because we were created by God, that is a reason for that. So let's try to think together and reflect together about the reasons why we are. Trying to find a final answer, but probably reflecting together if we all have the same purpose as well, or if there is some specific purpose for each one of us. So then we can leave here thinking a little bit more about what is the reason why we live the way we live, who we live with, in the country we live with, in the times that we live today. And the first passage that came to mind when I was thinking about the purpose of spirits, it was about the creation itself. And that brought me back to the very first book of the Old Testament, which was the Genesis. And specifically about the sixth day of creation, which was the creation of humankind. And I'm not going to read everything, but just a very few passages from that specific day. God created humankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. And if we are thinking about purpose, it sounds already very, very clear that from the beginning, or from our creation as spirits, there was a reason for us to be. And of course, that God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was even a morning in the sixth day. We could end right here, right? We could say, okay, that's what we're supposed to do. But obviously, it's not exactly like that. If we are to think that, first of all, we were not created in one day, and that sixth day is very symbolic, and the idea of 7 days of creation is poetic in one way, and in the other has to do probably with eras and ages during this period of creation, progression, and evolution of the material and the spiritual world. Therefore, if we are to think that there is a purpose for us, and what to do with the resources that are being given to us in order for us to be fruitful with it and multiply, we may want to think a little more in depth about it. So, the first question that comes to my mind is, if it is the purpose of us as spirits, I would ask myself, so then what is a spirit? What is the spirit? And we will come back to the basics of spiritism in the Spirit's book. And the question that Allan Kardec and his collaborators was very clear: what is the spirit? And the spirits would say it is the intelligent principle of the universe. Not only that, in the question 79, the spirits will be more specific and say, spirits are the individualizations of the intelligent principle. So here we are. We have the material principle and we have the spiritual principle. And if we go back to Genesis, then it makes a little bit more sense. God created those two principles. One, the material. And when God talks about the earth and talks about the skies and talks about the air and talks about the plants and everything that is on this earth, he's talking about that material principle that creates all things around us. But what would be of this material principle if there was no agent of manipulation, of managing that principle, of changing and using it for a purpose? So then here we are, as the individualization of the intelligent principle with the potential to help God with God's creation. It still sounds very vague and very broad, and we are going to deepen a little more into it. But it is interesting to think that from the beginning, God created us with a very specific purpose: to be able to act upon the material principle, to change it, and to maintain it. Obviously, that part of it means, do spirits have an end? Because obviously, spirits have a beginning, they have a principle. But do spirits have an end? And it is very comforting for us to understand that the spirit's individual existences do not have an end. Therefore, us as spirits will not have an end. Therefore, our purpose doesn't have an end. So right away, not only it is comforting, but also very challenging, because I keep trying to think, what am I supposed to do with that not ending life that we have now? That is something really, really, really big for us to live. Something really, really, really long and big for us to do. But do we all have the same tasks? If we are all created equally, why are we so different? And if we have multiple existences and there are multiple, planes of existence in this universe, probably it is because there is something really large for us to do. And this brings us back to, since our creation as spirits, we evolve very differently. Because there is one law that governs our existences that allows us to be very unique. And that is the free will. All of us were created simple and ignorant. However, for all of us, there is a different time. And there are probably different tasks because we were placed in different parts of this universe. All of us have its own place. And all of us are to find our way in this place. That then brings me to the order and classifications of spirits, which I'm not going in depth, but in general, we can think about, depending where we are in that scale of evolution, probably there will be different ways for us to contribute with the creation. If we think about the most imperfect spirits, what would happen with them? First of all, matter prevails over spirit. Probably some of the spirits that are inferior or in the beginning of their life and their journey as spirits will be much more attached to matter. Does that mean that they don't have a purpose? No. Likely, spirits that are more primitive and that are imperfect still have a purpose. Now, there are two things that I can think about now. One of them is, if spirits are more linked with matter, probably they will receive tasks compatible with their level of evolution. So if we think that the spirits influence all our lives constantly, both intellectually and materially, we can think that some of those spirits will then be responsible to help to maintain the material world. We know by the works of André Luiz and Emmanuel, talking about the life in the spiritual world, thinking about the relationship between the spiritual and the material world, especially here on earth, we understand that there are spirits that specifically have the purpose of contributing to maintain and manipulate, for instance, climate, weather, to contribute with the life of vegetation, with specific natural phenomena linked with the geology of the earth, and they have active part on those specific phenomena. So even though we may be very primitive and imperfect, still there is a place for us. Not only that, I would say that I don't even dare to place myself in one of those categories, because I know that I will be wrong, and probably I will be a little lower than anything that I may envision. And thinking about imperfect spirits, especially those who still are very dedicated to imperfect things, let's say, that probably are still not keen on making others happy or contribute with the common good, but probably feel very content in seeing our pain and increase our pain sometimes, because we do that. So then I can imagine if maybe I was supposed to be a pebble in the shoes of my parents when I was growing up. Who knows? So then there is a purpose for me to allow them to have patience with me and to tolerate and to teach me the better ways. So here we are, good, bad, ugly, wonderful spirits living together. Maybe then the inferior ones are our teachers, allowing us to learn about patience, to learn about tolerance, to learn about how we are not supposed to be. I usually say that the greatest teachers that I have don't know that they are my teachers, because usually they teach me what not to be, what not to do. But I know at the same time that I am one of those teachers, because many people look at me and are absolutely clear, and they are right not to follow a lot of what I do, what I say, and how I live. Even the imperfect spirits have a purpose. If we are to continue thinking about the different spirits and their place in this universe and how they can help each other, we're looking then at the good spirits. And the good spirits are the ones that already journey on a more spiritualized life. If not completely much more spiritualized, they already, like, the scale bends more to the spiritual side than the material one. That is more understanding of the infinite, of God, of the immortality of the soul. They may then recognize themselves as immortal spirits. They have the desire to do good, and many times the desire is materialized. Allan Kardec would say some of those spirits are maybe even called by us like guardian angels, like protector spirits, like those who guide others towards good. Yeah, it sounds right. Maybe some of the imperfect spirits being guided by good spirits grow, progress, evolve, until one day they may receive the task in another existence to then be the tutors and the mentors and the guides and the teachers of others inferior to them. So here they are, contributing to the greater good, the evolution of all spirits. And we have the pure spirits. And about those, we don't have much to say. Probably because we don't have the language, the understanding, the ability to grasp the purity of spirits that are fully dematerialized, that reach a level of perfection and purity that are allowed by God, and then finally they will start a journey of contributing to the maintenance of the universe created by God for a countless number of spirits at a time. They are the messengers, the ministers of God. In the Spirit's book, there is something beautiful. It says they maintain universal harmony. And if we go to the book of Genesis, who read the book of Genesis from Allan Kardec? There's homework for. Go for it. It's worth it. It's not easy, but it's worth it. In the book of Genesis, there is a lot being explained to us in terms of the origin of our worlds, the maintenance, the evolution of our material world, to allow for us as spirits to inhabit it. The maintenance of the physical laws that govern our worlds, and the immense solidarity. One of the powerful words that I learned from the book of Genesis from Allan Kardec is that word, solidarity. From the spirits to the material world, from discarnate to incarnate spirits, from all the spirits towards God, and from God to all creation. That is endless solidarity, which means that is endless purpose. Oh, I did something beautiful and I left to the end. So if we think about that progression, we are talking about imperfection to goodness, to wisdom, to intelligence, then to purity. If we think about our purpose and if we think about our diversity, it would be logical to ask the spirits if some spirits were created good and others evil. And summarizing a very deep and extended answer from the spirits, we can extract that God has created all spirits simple and ignorant. That means without knowledge. And in this day and age, it's very important, the meaning. And I think they knew already that one day we're going to be reading this in 2023. Because when we say ignorant, we need to make it very clear. This is not knowing. We are using very well those terms. And Everything is to be known by us and to be understood and have deep meaning. Here we are talking about the nature of all of us not knowing towards knowing, from simplicity to complexity. God has given, and here it is, God has given each one of us a mission. And it is aimed at enlightening them, the spirits, and progressively leading them towards perfection through knowledge of the truth in order to draw them near to God. Each one of us have then a mission. What is our mission? What is it? I never stopped asking that. But the answer lies in that process. This is not an answer that I personally believe that we can give to ourselves. However, we can slowly enlighten ourselves following what already has been given to us. And we are going to get there. What has been given to us? You may ask me, what do you mean, what has been given to us? Well, we don't need to think very much to understand that this earth has been given to us. This specific planet, with those specific seasons, in specific regions of the planet where we live, and we think that we are free to come and go. We may think that, partially may be true. But if we all have purpose, there is purpose for us to be here. We were all born in one region of this planet, and here we are in another one. And then we meet people and we have absolutely no idea why. And please don't think too much. Don't think too much about it, because sometimes people ask me, why are you with your wife? I prefer not to think about it. If I find the answer, no, let's allow ourselves to be. But we have links and relationships. We are attracted to people and to things, sometimes without even thinking about it, almost magnetically, like those magnets that get together with each other, with those invisible laws that rule those connections. And why do we have that specific neighbor? One of them in one side that makes us very, very, very jealous, sometimes envious, because their lives seem so much better than ours. Why in the other side, that is the other neighbor, that seems to be the same way with us that we are with the other, and then suddenly there they are, making sure that we keep awake for a little longer on the weekends, that we practice our patience. Sometimes we need to cut a little bit of their lawn for them just to be generous, otherwise it's gonna grow on our side. Why? We know as well that many times we don't understand, but we are, living in this microcosmos, in that family that we have, with those specific people, exactly to put in practice our tasks and our purpose and our mission. Because today we are relating with 4 and 5 or 6 or 7. And then tomorrow we will be given 10 or 20 or 50, until one day we will be given a society, a race, or like Jesus, a planet and all its inhabitants. Our purpose doesn't end. And our purpose also is as alive and dynamic as we are. Even when we discover today what is our mission, tomorrow will change. By the simple fact that we discover our mission today, and then God says, great, now you go to the next chapter. Now it's going to be another task, another mission, another add-on to your purpose. Are there spirits who remain forever in the lower orders? Why did I bring that question? Because we may then think there are people that probably we feel they have no purpose. You know, what about if we don't do anything with our lives? Are we going to be stagnant forever? In certain points of our lives, we may have that feeling, I don't want to go anywhere else. Could I just stay here? And the answer is very clear. Nope. Voluntarily or not, we will all progress towards perfection. The perfection that is allowed for us to have. But we are all destined to purity. So if any of us continue thinking that by doing good, one day we will rejoice and reap the fruits of goodness in an endless process of praising God from a cloud, we are mistaken. Because if we learn how to solve a problem, our reward is 2 problems. If we learn how to solve 2 problems, I don't think God thinks arithmetically. He thinks, that other order geometrically. So when we learn how to deal with 2 problems, God gives us 4. And from 4 goes to 16 right away. Exponential. Thank you, Teresa. That is the word. Our lives as spirits progressively becomes exponential. Look inwards a little bit. And at first, we may rebel. At first, we may complain. We may also think that it is not possible to solve those problems, either at once or even in order, or even trying to prioritize. And then one day we look back and we barely believe that we are here now. And then tomorrow, that is another reward on our door. Claiming for resolution, because it is part of our purpose, that solidarity. There is need everywhere, every time. If we are to think logically, if God never ceases to create, we never cease to help God with the creation. If there are always spirits of all orders, there is always the solidarity among ourselves to continue helping, contributing. And thankfully, there are always more evolved spirits coming constantly to our help and contributing to our evolution and enlightening us and teaching us and helping us to understand right from wrong and helping us to understand the actions that reflect that right and that wrong. It is a constant movement of evolution, but a solidary evolution. And also, Allan Kardec did ask exactly that. What is the purpose of the incarnation of the spirits? God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. Not only God gives us the purpose, but God gives us the means. And if anybody would believe that an incarnation is a punishment, here is the answer. Our incarnations are not a punishment. The life of the incarnate spirit is the field of battle. It is the classroom. It is the emergency room of our growth. After every incarnation, we acquired knowledge. We practice qualities that were probably taught in the spiritual world, but we have the task here to then put in practice. We relate with different people that are essential for us to our growth. We relate with people to allow us to redo some things that we have done mistakenly. We are created simple and ignorant, but we are supposed to know all things. We are supposed to know all things. That is the passage of the book of Genesis from Allan Kardec that I mentioned, just to illustrate the solidarity between matter and intelligence, beings of one world, of all worlds, and all creations to the Creator. I came across a book psychographed by Chico Xavier, by the spirit André Luiz, Evolution into Worlds. I confess I didn't have the time to do a better research, but I don't think this book is in English. It is in English. There you go.
As difficult as in Portuguese to read.
Right? Okay, so then I didn't bring anything about it on purpose because I didn't want to, make anybody's mind, so hot and heavy. But it is interesting because there are two specific concepts in this book. Two specific concepts explained by André Luiz that I believe that are very important for us just to get to know very quickly, even because I would not be able to explain that very well. The one is co-creators in larger plane, and the other one is co-creators in lower plane. What do I understand that means? Let's start with the co-creators in lower plane. All of us have a place in the universe. From the beginning of our creation, more matter than spirit, more animal than human, there is a place for all of us. We constantly reincarnating are given minuscule, diminutive, simple tasks to perform that allow us, incarnation by incarnation, to progressively dematerialize, to progressively spiritualize, to progressively encounter our true essence as immortal spirits, gaining knowledge, gaining wisdom, understanding the reasons why we are where we are, understanding who we are, the links that we have with the spiritual world, therefore contributing in our own minuscule way to the progression of our brothers and sisters, our planet. And then we have co-creators in larger plane, which then is likely the tasks and missions of those who already reached that level of purity that we don't have access yet to, but then progressively receive tasks and missions directly by God to contribute to the harmony of our universe, to help the spirits that are constantly being created to have a stage to evolve, to have relationships to nurture, to have purpose to act on. That somehow allowed me a little bit to understand that no matter our level of evolution, that is no excuse for us to say, I cannot do it. I cannot help. I cannot contribute. I have nothing to offer. Obviously, that one of the purposes that we have is to understand our place in this universe, which is called humbleness. Not believe that we are more than we really are, but part of being humble is also not to pretend that we are less, because false modesty is very detrimental for us, because we place ourselves on a place of need that we don't have. We have needs, but when we place ourselves inferior to the place that we really occupy, we are wasting the resources that God gave to us to contribute to the good of our brothers and sisters and our planet, and so on and so forth. Who knows me knows that I am never satisfied to end a lecture without trying to learn from the one who materialized God's love to us. If all of this has been taught to us, I am absolutely sure that Jesus already taught us 2,000 years ago. And obviously that in that limitation that I have, I found a few elements to help us to understand our purpose that Jesus gave to us. Blessed are the pure in spirit, the poor in spirit, the simple. Lucas. God, the purpose. Jesus tells us, the ones who suffer, for they are blessed. But when Jesus says the ones who suffer and who mourn without revolt. So Jesus is telling us our purpose is to act with simplicity, is to act with resignation. Blessed are the meek. Our purpose is to learn how to be kind. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure heart, because they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will inherit the earth. And the rest of the Sermon of the Mountain probably summarizes: love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you, give the other cheek, loving, forgiving, forgetting, progressing. Jesus told us, you are the salt of the earth. For all of us, at least who have good material taste, we know that for food to taste good, it needs salt. Anything is enhanced food-wise with salt. But the salt of the earth is exactly this. If we are the salt of the earth, we are to enhance our lives and the lives of everybody with those spices. You are the light of the world. More than ever, we know that there is darkness. More than ever, we are being taught, since the modern psychology tells us that we all have light and shadow. And only shedding light on our own shadow and not denying it that we can grow whole. We can only change what we know. We are all made of light and shadow. If we are the light of the world, may we then allow our brothers and sisters to talk to us about their darkness. And through our own darkness, allow them to understand that the only way for us to grow, it is understand where we need to grow. And finally, let your light shine to others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Because glorifying our Father in heaven is mimicking, it is copying, and it is imitating those good deeds. So then one day we will be able to master those good deeds. Therefore, glorifying and honoring our Father in heaven, because at this very first times that we practice the good deeds, something happens with us. That goodness takes us over, and we continue desiring and practicing that good, and we come one step closer to understand our purpose, because it feels good and it feels right to continue doing our good deeds, because that is our purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tiago, for a great lecture. I probably never be able to also grasp what's the meaning of the title and the purpose of spirits. But it was was great. Like a great way of explaining it. Do you have any questions or any comments on the internet or here? This group here, any comments, any questions? It's very interesting to see what's the purpose, because then it talks about our purpose. Because when you read that, the first time when I read, I was just like, what's the purpose of the spirits in my life? No, it's what's the purpose of me as a spirit and life itself, right? So that was really great. Thank you so much. And Luke was perfect gentleman through the whole thing. It's great.
Definitely.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
I
yes.
have a
Yes.
question. I missed I was a little bit late, so I have missed something, but you mentioned that we don't have an end, right? So as a spirits, but how do we begin as spirits?
Wonderful question. Just starting with the first part, which is the end. What is curious for me, at least, and gives me a lot of food for thought, is when Allan Kardec asks the spirits, if our lives as spirits will have an end, if we are going to end one day. It is interesting because the spirits say, the life of the spirit, does not have an end, and that is the only thing that we would tell you now. So it is interesting because even though it sounds very clear, we're not going to have our spirit life is not going to have an end, which means that we are immortal, and that is constantly pointed out and reminded to us. Maybe they didn't want us to sweat over it. And in terms of beginning, also the spirits are very clear. our lives as spirits doesn't start with our creation. Our creation is not accessible to us. Only God knows and understands the process of individualization of the intellectual principle. That is completely inaccessible to us. But the Spiritist literature teaches us that in some point, when there is that process of individualization, which is very, very gradual, very, very slow, step by step, which again, we're maybe talking about millions or more years, we don't know. There is a specific process that likely happens in the spiritual world where, with the help of very specialized spirits, or the architects of the spirits, let's say, will then help those spirits to somehow individualize and acquire some specific traits that will then allow us to start our lives as spirits. It's a very dense as well, and that is the only thing that we know, that process is with the help of the spirits. It happens in the spiritual world, and that is some sort of leap. And from then on, we are then given the incarnations as individualized spirits, which then will allow us to develop the human form, to allow us to develop the intelligence and get away from the instinct, the feelings from specific, simply survival mode, to the individualization, to awareness of who we are, to the awareness of, our place in the universe, where we come from. But still, this is not accessible to us, because there are things that are never going to be accessible to us, and that's why God is God. That's the best that can be given, I believe. That sense. Make sense?
Yeah.
Probably when we're in a way more evolved spot, like a spot like Jesus, then we'll probably have a better understanding how the creation is done. Right? But right now, that's the Spirit's made very clear through Kardec's books, right? That's as much as we can tell you, is that you're created at some point, simple and ignorant, and from there you're to progress, right?
And even in some of the books of André Luiz, there is also a lot of explanation in terms of our lives as a spiritual principle, but not spirit, which is very well defined. So then, of course, that, many of us would say, because, my dogs or my cats, that they understand me to a point, yes. But the spirits will say the difference between us is that kind of a leap. And that kind of leap is even unknown. So massive it is, that is unknown. But there is that process of evolution that is so gradual that even the most primitive animals starting to develop the bond amongst each other. Even when they discarnate, they don't leave their biological, breeders, because that is a link that is so potent. They constantly are reincarnating very close to each other, and even incarnation starts slowly to widen. So instead of always incarnating in that same group, slowly you can start incarnating in other dimensions of life with other beings, because then you are to start knowing more. So it is a very interesting point, and I really recommend books like the Genesis, some of the books of André Luiz, that can help us to understand the magnitude, but also they are very good in helping us not to become very anxious in thinking about it, but helping us to say, this is all to say that the creation, again, is not in 6 days. That is a huge process. All that has been poured over our existences is really immense. So why not take the best advantage of that opportunity, right?
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? No? All right. Thiago, thank you so much. Thank you, Lucas.
Let's see. Let's see. He's taking care of Earth.
Yeah. Yes, he was explaining to me how Earth it is in there. It's really good. All right, thank you very much again, Tiago, for another lecture. Thank you, all of you who are with us over the internet. Hoping to see you here next week for another lecture. And for all of us here going to stay, we're just gonna prepare a little bit for our passes now, okay?